Welcome. I'm Scott with Etchus. This is Scott with Etchus. We are here today to show you how to do the installation of a double din kit that we sell on the 94 to 96 Chevy Caprice and Impala. If you've already purchased the kit, thank you. You're in for an amazing treat that's going to make your life a heck of a lot easier now. If you haven't and you're considering it, thank you. Take a watch through this video, see what you think. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We could always be reached at sales@etchus.com or through our website at www.etchus.com. What you see here on the table is everything that you're going to really need to get our kit installed, including a radio that's not provided with the kit, our kit with a set of paper instructions, as well as this video that you're watching, and most importantly, some really basic tools to make sure this all goes into place. And those include a Phillips head screwdriver, a 7mm socket, your choice of destruction, either a Dremel or an air saw, and a hook tool to be able to install your double din cage. So without further ado, let's get started.
All right, so the first thing you're going to do is remove the instrument cluster bezel. Requires a 7mm socket. There's two of them, one on either side of the steering column. You remove these two screws and then it just snaps out. So yes, the biggest problem with these cars is the dash is brittle. You got to be careful taking them out. So those two screws come out, bezel comes out. Remove the fuse cover door, and there is one 7mm screw here, and it is the thicker threaded one. Then there's along the bottom. You can choose to remove the ashtray or not remove the ashtray. I choose to remove it just because it kind of gets in the way. There's four 7mm bolts behind that. Here's the scary part, removing the dash from the vehicle. There's clip here, 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 here. I usually pull the driver's side first. Oh, wait a minute, did I forget one? No, okay. Nice and gently, and then grab this one here. And watch out for the clips that like to break. Then remove the radio. And remove the AC controls. Once you slide it out, you're going to have your antenna connection and your radio connection. And that's pretty much it. All right, then AC controls need to be moved down. So what we have to do is we have to trim out these two brackets in order for the double din to go in there. So for the next part, you've got to cut out. You can use either a Dremel or an air saw. I prefer to use an air saw. You can buy an air saw just about any auto parts store. Same thing with a Dremel. So the kit, there's a hole here. Lines up with the hole in the dash with the screw in. If you put it together backwards, you won't be able to put it in. So make sure that hole is to the right. It only goes on one way. It's not universal. So AC controls will fit through the bracket, and the holes here line up with the tabs on the AC controls. The kit comes with 3 screws, and all you have to do is line those up and screw them in. Now we're going to install the bracket. You've got your antenna and your power cable, your speaker leads for your radio. So there's 2 round alignment pins that are in the dash that the kit lines up on, and then it will bolt in using stock holes.
stock holes, stock screws. Right?
Stock holes, stock screws. There's a 1/4-inch spacer that comes with the kit. It is very necessary to put that 1/4-inch spacer in, or else the kit will not line up correctly. It is a nut. By the way, I'm using a 7mm, the same tool I used to remove all the stuff. And I'm using the stock screws to put it in. And it is an 1/8-inch aluminum bracket. It is nice and stiff. It's not going to go anywhere unless your dash is broken. There is one other thing you have to do. Okay, so in here, this piece right here, this car wasn't designed to have a double din kit in it or a double din radio that's 7 inches deep. Your radio will hit this spot and not go all the way in if it's a full chassis radio. If it is a JVC or Alpine that only has 3 inches of depth, you can ignore this part of the step of the installation because your radio will never get that close. Now, I like to heat it up with a little torch and then just push it back with a screwdriver. You only need to move it back like 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch, just enough for the radio to clear.
What happens if they go all the way through?
If you go all the way through, cover it up with some duct tape, you'll be fine. Because that's just an AC vent, it's just air. Worst case, you get a little bit of cold air on your radio. So what I do, I just heat the area up just a little bit. You can also use a heat gun or a MAP gas torch. And then I take a screwdriver and just push back. And then just hold it for a minute or so until the plastic cools. You may have to do this a couple times after you get the radio bolted up, but I was pretty sure this one's going to hit. So then you can see a little indentation back here where you've pushed it back. Once you get the double din cage in and you slide your radio in, if it still hits, reach back in there, heat it up a little bit more, push it back a little bit more. So this little tab poking out right here, about 1/8 of an inch long, it will get in the way of putting the radio cage in just like I did. All you've got to do is trim it off. Like that. Then you insert the cage all the way back. There's your antenna and your radio wires. So you'll see a bunch of little triangular tabs all around the radio. If you've never installed a radio before, you're going to wonder what those are. If you've installed one before, you know what they are. All they are is you bend them down to hold the cage in place. If not, the cage is just going to rock around. So, and your radio gets stolen, exactly. So you just need to bend using either a hook tool or a screwdriver works. Just something to bend the metal back to keep it from rattling and moving. And what I usually try to do is bend it, shake it, make sure the tab is bent enough to keep the radio from moving. Like that. So now you've cut the dash, you've installed the bracket, you've installed the AC controls, the double din cage. All that's left now is to mount or cut the dash and mount the radio bit, the new bezel. After you paint it and texture it, we'll go over that later. And then also just do a basic radio install, which is just wiring up your radio, your antenna adapter, and sliding it in the dash. So the next step in installing your double din kit into your 94-96 Impala, 94-96 Chevy Caprice is the cutting of the dashboard, the scariest part of this entire project. So there's a indented groove around the entire center section. Luckily, we have a wood grain kit so you can see it better. This is where you're going to cut. You're just going to use your Dremel or your air saw, trim right around that whole border. Then you're going to test fit your piece. Make sure that it fits flush with the dash. If it sticks out at all, you're going to want to trim off whatever excess you've left in there. And now we're going to go ahead and cut the dash. All right, so the next part is epoxying the kit in. I like to get it lined up where I want it, tape it down, and then I'm going to epoxy it from the back side and clamp it to let it sit and dry. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to epoxy the sides. I'm not going to epoxy the bottom because it'll spooge out and you'll see it, which is not what you want. So you're going to find this box in your kit, contains your epoxy. This epoxy has a 4 to 6 minute working time. So you're going to want to make sure your piece is lined up where you want it and where you can clamp it, and you should be all good. I'm just using the clamps to put pressure on it to mold it to the dash. The dash has a little bit of a curve to it, and the piece will bend with it. So the clamps are just there to line it up, keep it straight, so you can epoxy it. Careful not to get this stuff on anything you don't want to be stuck to your dash. Why it's important is because you want to make sure you've got everything set up to epoxy before you mix it all up. Because once you mix it together, that's when your countdown clock starts. So you're going to take these two pieces. You'll see that it's got an indent in it that this fits in. Put it in its deepest, most adjustment position. You're going to put it on the radio, and your holes are going to line up for you to slide it in. Now, you want it to line up to where you've got about 1/4 of an inch of the radio sticking out. Then you're going to take the screws that come with your radio, not the radio kit. We don't supply those because every radio is a little different. And then all you're going to do is screw it in. Depending on how many screws your radio comes with. Now, that should be snugged down in order to slide into the cage. It's a tight fit on the cage. Repeat that for the other side. Make a note of which holes you lined up on. Snug them down, and you're ready to go. Okay. So now we're going to put the radio back in the dashboard. You're going to have your basic connections. You're going to plug your radio in, your antenna adapter in. Also, if you have amplifiers, make sure your RCAs are plugged in, because you really don't want to have to take all this back apart once you've done it. And I'm putting in a USB plug that I'm hiding in the ashtray drawer, so that I can plug in my phone or a USB stick and listen to whatever I want if I don't like what's on the radio. So once all your connections are done and ready to go back in, simply make sure your wires are all going in smooth and not going to get caught on the cage, and slide the radio in until it clicks. By the way, before you put your dash back in, go ahead and power your radio up, make sure everything's working, because you don't want to have to take the dash back out again, unless you just like doing that kind of thing. Now, you got to reinstall your dashboard and hope that everything lines up correctly. I think I can live with that. After you've done all your adjusting to make it sit where it needs to, just reassemble the dash in the reverse direction. Make sure you put your 4.7mm under the dash, your 1 on the end. Snap your gauge bezel piece in, put those 2 screws back in, remount your ashtray, and you're ready to go.
So if you'd like to get in touch with us for any reason, we've got links in the description that will get you right to us, whether it be Facebook, our website, Instagram. All that good stuff's going to be down there. Check it out. If you thought this video was helpful, leave a comment. If you thought this video was helpful, subscribe. If you didn't think this video was helpful, subscribe anyway. That would help us tremendously. We look forward to working with you again here in the near future. We hope to have more of these videos for you. And again, as always, thank you.